All right, part one done. I didn't realize we were going to need a part two. Here we are, same thing, rolling straight into it. We already talked about the Ballad of the Twins. We already talked about the awesome Song of the Ancients. However, there is one thing that I did want to touch back on when it comes to Song of the Ancients. All of the music in Nier was written in a fake language, but it wasn't the same fake language. Apparently, what Emmy Evans did in her process was that Keiichi Okabe would send her the music, and then she would listen to the music and then tell herself, okay, it's going to be this fake language that I sing in. Here's the thing though, she's not singing in that fake language. What she's doing is that she listens to the language, picks up the interesting sounds from that language, and then sings in gibberish in those languages. And the first song that she had wrote was Song of the Ancients, and this was before she created the entire process. So the very first song she had wrote for Nier was Song of the Ancients, even before she told herself to write it as gibberish for other languages. So in other words, Song of the Ancients isn't even gibberish in a single language, it is just gibberish in general to sound she likes and that she put together. Which is why probably Song of the Ancients is the best song because Emmy Evans just went, I like the way these words sound together. We'll get to. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that. That's one of the reasons why I've always admired her singing. Honestly, this whole language she'd made is just genius. Like, I probably would have never thought of just making complete gibberish for a song. That is just the craziest thing I've ever heard in terms of the music. Like, I love that.
To be able to listen to a language and go, yes, these are the sounds that make this language unique is some galaxy brain 3D level kind of thinking that I don't think I could ever process. I mean, I know how to play a saxophone. I haven't done it in almost a decade, but that's still in me. I knew how to read music, but I have no idea how anyone could be so sonally intelligent to be able to just listen to a language and say, yes, those are the sounds that are unique to that language. That's so impressive to me.
Anyone not considering her for any kind of singing for their soundtrack is missing out. That's all I'm gonna say. They're missing out.
Absolutely. Now, there is one thing that I do want to touch on because we recorded the last episode 2 or 3 days ago, and then a trailer comes out confirming what we both thought was going to happen, which is short stories getting put into Replicant V1.2. How
Oh
about
yeah.
that? We actually called it.
I'm telling you, they were listening in on us while we were recording. They were listening, and then they did some magic. Yoko Taro pulled his little shenanigan strings, and then boom, he threw the short story in there. He's like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it."
So I don't want to talk about the short story yet because there is something about that story that actually had me thinking that it was cut content. So I will probably say my opinions on that. I just wanted to put that out there because we were right, damn it. We called it. We fucking called it.
And it would make sense that it's also cut content because I know that a big advertisement for this remake was that they were adding some cut content. So it would make sense if maybe some of the short stories were there, but of course they were put into book form, and that's all we got. But it would definitely make sense if that was cut content, and I'd honestly be excited to see what else was cut content that they'll be putting in there. I'm really hyped to see some.
I don't even know what I want. I'm still wanting to be on record that the game isn't just going to be a remaster slash remake and that it's going to be either an actual prequel or a sequel. It's going to be canon and not replaced Gestalt or Replicant. I'm calling it right now.
I remember Yoko Taro did say as one of the early interviews that this was going to have some use of 2B and 9S as actors. Of course, that wouldn't really link up to just putting Nier Automata outfits in the game. So I'm wondering if that right there is going to be how they bridge it to be an actual prequel and make it canon, as if they're going to add some kind of actual story content that references 2B and 9S. That's what I'm wondering. I don't remember if they said anything about Allegra Clark doing anything for A2. Like, I don't believe A2 was mentioned, but I know 2B and 9S were.
Yeah, at least from that trailer that I had seen, the only thing that I saw was that they mentioned the actors for 2B and 9S. That was it. That was the only English cast that they had, but I had noticed at least that for the Japanese voice cast, they had a whole bunch of names that I didn't recognize. To be fair, it's not like I would have recognized them anyways, but I'm
Right,
saying that it was
yeah.
a longer list of Japanese names, so but only two in English. So I don't know what to read into that.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll get a Yorha reference. Who really knows? But we're so close. I mean, today's Monday. We've only got 4 more days. We're close. I mean, I can feel that Friday coming on, or really Thursday night at midnight, I guess. But I feel it.
Oh man, and my White Snow edition hasn't moved once, UPS. Please.
I'm jealous you got that, but you know what? I'm just grateful I'm playing it at all. Maybe I'll snag something in the future, but at least I'm playing it. That's what matters.
True. It's still painful to know what happened with yours. That one hurts me deeply. We'll get to. Whenever you get a chance, get a credit card. They save your life. Just don't spend more than what you got. That's pretty much
Yeah,
the only thing I can tell you.
that's good advice. Yeah, I probably should do that.
All right. Enough preamble. Let's get back into it. Ballad of the Twins, fucking awesome. One of the side quests that I can stand by. After that, you've already gone fishing. You got your fish that had you actually known about, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. You wouldn't have had to have sex with that man. But oh well, I guess you can't really cry about spilt milk at this point. You give the fish to Yona and she begins feeling better. Now, of course, like I said, this was going to be a summary, kind of a spoiler cast, as well as a full on encompassing of all of the Nier lore, but it's also encompassing what I played. So after I cured up Yona and she was like, I'm feeling a little bit better, I went and did 4 quests. Let's just get into it. Quest Yona's home cooking. Yona tries to kill you. It's hilarious. Apparently, Yona is horrible at cooking. So Yona tells Nier, hey, I want to make you some food. And everything in the text has Nier going, oh, yeah, that sounds great. And then you leave, and Nier and Weiss are talking, and they're like, dude, her cooking is horrendous. This is absolutely the worst. And Weiss is like, you could just not eat it. And he's like, no, I'm her brother and or dad. I need to be able to do this for her. So you go grab your supplies, you give it to Yona, and it's hilarious because the game just insults Yona's cooking so badly in the description. You give Yona the food, she cooks it, and I think one of them is like, oh yeah, your meal still looks like it's moving. Try to eat it. And then you eat it and you pass out. And it's so after that you still lie to Yona. You're like, yeah, it was good. Oh wait, I forgot. She doesn't see you pass out, so you just have enough strength to tell her, yeah, this is great. She leaves, and then you pass out. And Weiss wakes you up and is like, man, you were tougher than I am. And considering that this guy used to work for the Hamlin organization, that's probably saying a lot now when you think about it. So that was that quest. That one is fine. It's fine, but once again, what you're actually doing for the quest sucks. After that, Bon Appetit. This one is only funny because of how it ends. You go to Seafront, there is a tavern keeper. He says he wants fucking sharks to make fried rice. And you go and you fish sharks. You give him the sharks, he cooks up a meal, he eats it, and then you go back to him later on and you're like, hey, how was the shark fins? And he's like, oh, yeah, about that. I couldn't even taste the shark in the fried rice, so I just threw out the rest after you gave me the first shark.
I didn't even know about that. That's hilarious. That's great.
Mugetsu, that's the thing, man. All of the side quests, I only played them. Well, for one, for all of this, but I played them because in AUTOMATA, I realized most of the side quests suck, but the dialogue is pretty good. I'm not going to say it's
Sounds like
worth
they're
it.
chores to do, but the writing at least is worth it. Which, of course, Yoko Taro is just he has a good sense of humor, so I'm not even surprised. But now when I play Replicant, even though I'm hearing a description for all these, I'm gonna have to play all of them because I really like writing like that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that one had me like, you son of a bitch. I had to do a separate quest to be able to actually catch sharks with my fishing, and you're telling me you threw those away. Do you know how much money each one of those could get me? Each one of those is about $3,000, and you just threw them away because you didn't taste them in your fried rice. Fuck you. But then he gives you so much money that I was like, okay, you know what? Fine. So, deliver the fish, get paid. The next quest, new merchant in town. Guy wants to trade items across the ocean. However, for some reason, he's an idiot and can't grab the supplies, so he asks you to go grab them. But what ends up happening is that you give him the supplies, and what ends up happening is that he leaves the harbor, but then he comes back and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot. I have seasickness. I can't actually go and sail the sea. Thanks for the supplies, I guess. Here's some money. You know what? Maybe these aren't too bad. Maybe these aren't too bad, but I'm still ready to throw all these side quests off to the fucking ditch.
Everyone in these side quests deserves a punch in the face. Except Yona, of course. Yona can't help it, but everyone else deserves a punch in the face.
Yeah, Yona, on the other hand, she just... I swear that it might be the black scrawl falling into the food or something. That's my only guess.
She tried her best. That's all we can do.
Tried her best to fucking kill us, and she still failed at that. Quest. Lighthouse Lady's Wrath. So, like I said, there was one quest line that is the only one I can say is totally worth it because of just the writing in general. And the last one I mentioned was the Postman's Request. Of course, the last quest that we did was that the postman had asked you to deliver the mail to the lighthouse lady. You look at the letters, and the letters are love letters from a guy who is like, I'm out here. I haven't gotten back to you. Don't worry. One day we'll be back together. You give it to the lighthouse lady. She's very happy to hear it. She reads it. She passes out of happiness. Lighthouse Lady's Wrath. What ends up happening is that you go see the old lady one more time, and you find out that she's infected with the black scrawl. And whenever you talk to her, you find out that she really just wishes for one last look at the person that she loves. And you start asking around the village. Well, not the village. You start asking around Seafront, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, she wants to do that? Well, too fucking bad. She needs to look after the lighthouse. And it's one of those things where you're thinking, okay, I get it. She's an asshole, but that's pretty fucked up to kind of deny this woman her dying wish. After you talk to everyone, you go to the postman, and you talk to the postman, and you ask him, like, hey, so what's going on here? You know, why can't she do that? And the postman's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't even ask me. However, if you go to the basement of the post office, there's like a little block puzzle. You move around stuff and you can get through. What ends up happening is that you look inside the basement and you realize that there's a whole bunch of letters addressed to the lighthouse lady, but all of them are coming from the town. So you go back up to the postman and you ask him, like, hey, what the hell? Why is it that all of these letters for the lighthouse lady are all just down there that you haven't delivered? And then the postman reveals that her lover actually died 50 years ago. And the previous post office man, his dad, didn't have the heart to tell her. So what he did is that he started writing fake love letters to her so she wouldn't learn that her lover was dead. So the previous postman would deliver these letters to her, and she would be none the wiser. She would just read these and think, oh, he's still out there. He's probably so busy he hasn't been able to come see me. But what ends up happening is that when the older postman dies and hands off the post office to his son, apparently everyone in Seafront starts writing letters with him to help out, so he's not the only one writing the letters. The entire Seafront is in on knowing that her lover is dead. So they've been all writing these letters so she doesn't abandon post. The postman gives you the option. He hands you a final letter. You can either give it to her or not. The final letter is one from the lover, again in quotations, saying, oh, don't worry, I will come back. I just need you to stay alive before then, which is just a straight up lie. You just straight up lie to her and tell her, don't worry, your lover's coming back. You just need to hold on until then. But everyone in the town just knows she's not going to live that long. So I saved Scum to figure out both, because there's no way I was going to play through the entire game up to this point and do it 2 times. So if you give her the letter, she reads the letter one more time, and she's just so overjoyed. Like, she is almost on the verge of tears hearing, oh my god, he's finally coming back. And then she tells herself, I'm going to hold on. That is all my focus is right now, making sure that I live to see him again. And you and Weiss walk out thinking, I have no idea if that was the right choice. That is the lie. If you decide to not give her the letter and decide to tell her the truth, she will just come truthfully and tell you, I assumed the letters weren't from him. You tell her as well that everyone in Seafront has been helping out with writing the letters. And what she realizes is that even though everyone treated her like shit in Seafront, she realizes that they cared enough to spare her the pain of knowing that her lover was dead. So she tells herself for the last few days that she has, she's just going to keep working the lighthouse. She will never tell anyone that she knows that they did it. All she knows is that she doesn't want to ruin the effort that all of them put into the letters to spare her the pain, and she did not want to show the pain she felt, so they couldn't think that was all for naught. After that, you get paid and you leave. Mugetsu, how about Lighthouse?
So, are we allowed to talk about AUTOMATA spoilers here?
So with part 1, I just spoiler tagged it as everything completely spoilers for the Dragon Nier series.
All right, cool. My thoughts are this questline in particular reminds me of the exact twist for Nier Automata. So if you tell the lie, of course she's going to sound happy, but you're going to have to live with the fact that it was a lie. It's kind of like how 2B had to keep 9S from learning the truth. And in the way, he was better off not knowing, because every time he would know, she would kill him. And now, if you tell her the truth, she will tell you that, she suspected the letters weren't from him. And of course, she doesn't want to ruin everyone's effort. That also reminds me of Automata in a way where 2B is, of course, designated as 2E, and she's meant to keep 9S from learning the truth. She's trying to let him continue doing his thing without the shock of knowing that it's all a lie. It's a really good contrast to what happens in Automata, I feel like. Or really just all of the writing in general. Like, we've gone through so much info already where there has been a lot of lying just to people's faces. Even Nier himself has been lied to a lot. It's really cool how this one little side quest still has some of that really strong writing that the main game has. They didn't have to pour all that into a side quest. We had one where a guy wanted shark fins, or someone was trading items across the ocean. Like, that's nothing compared to this one. This one has main story level writing. I think that's great.
Yes, this is the only one that now my co-host Reginald Brandon Addison Moosington, now fine, I'll actually say his name, Dorian. He stands by that Automata, you should at least do one side quest, and that is the side quest that gets you into 2B's graveyard. Now, I am usually of the mind that Automata might be better without side quests, mostly because you're already asking so much for people to go from endings A to E that I don't want to send them down a side quest that is totally worth it, but you're already asking so much time to be like, okay, yeah, here's the story. Now go and then hit continue, and then you're going to be confused for a little bit. Don't worry. The first half of B is going to be really slow, but then the second half is good, but then it ends, and then you hit continue again, and then you get to C and D, and you need to chapter select. Like, it already feels like I'm already asking so much of someone to just play A through E for Automata that I feel like it's too much out of the way to do it. The fact that the Postman's request is just 2 side quests that you get a huge punch from, I would recommend this side quest in general to get played. Like, it's that fucking good.
Absolutely, I agree.
Now, there are a couple of things that I decided to make note of because it happens up enough. What canonically is happening when you save the game is that Nier is sending letters to Yona. And what you see in these letters is replied back to in the loading screens. In the loading screens, Yona writes back to you. And while there's a whole bunch of different things of Yona saying, oh, while I was home alone, I started singing very loudly, but then it got too loud, so I got scared. Or Popola read me a book about a tree. I hope it's not a sad tree. Like, it's a whole bunch of different stuff like that to kind of flesh out Yona a little bit since you're not really traveling with her. But there's just one interesting thing that is funny. Drakengard 1, of course, came out in September 11th, 2003. What is Nier's birthday? 9/11. So I feel like this is actually a good time to jump somewhere else. Now, Nier's birthday being on 9/11, I think actually is a point that Yokotaro had. So I'm going to just read it off. Yokotaro spoke about being influenced by 9/11, and this is the main point that I can remember. Quote, 9/11 was an unfortunate event that triggered out of a situation where both sides believed they were doing the right thing. The question is, what did they see from their point of view? What does it look like from each other's perspective? These were the thoughts that went through my head when he was making Nier. So it doesn't seem like his birthday being 9/11 is just happenstance. It's a directed choice by him. It's just something I wanted to make mention. Later on, I will bring it up and tie it a little bit better. But it's just something that I felt like I should mention since I did now mention his birthday. With all of that, very next thing that I did was that there's a trophy to get $1 million. Now, here's the thing. The economy in this game is a little stingy. So what I did is that for 3 straight months in game, well, not in game, 3 straight months according to my PS3, I would plant seeds to farm out cross pollination between different flowers to finally get the lunar tier. Of course, when you manipulate the clock, it will jump ahead a couple of days. So I would go in, water some flowers, I'd put on a podcast, and then I would just start jumping ahead a day, booting back in, flowering, and then popping back out. I farmed so much that by the time that I was done, my money was completely 999 out. So, yeah, that one, I had to do that because at some point I'm going to have to buy every single weapon, and I felt like this was something I wanted to get out of the way. So just know that if you want to get the platinum for this game, trying to get $1 million and all the weapons is as annoying as hell. Back to the story. After you give the medicine to Yona, and if you're me, after you do a whole bunch of quests and you spend about 3 PS3 months trying to get a lunar tier, you get a letter from Seafront saying that apparently shades have been migrating from there and attacking the area. So you are sent off to go fight them. You go to the area and you find Kaine fighting these shades. The big shade that she was fighting, she is there as well, and Kaine is fighting that one as well. Anytime that you're walking around, you hear these people shit talking Kaine. They're like, she's a half breed. We need to get her out of here. Which is weird because Kaine is technically defending the area from the gigantic shade that is trying to attack them. You fight them, it's a boss fight, and eventually what happens is that after you get close to defeating it, the shade starts talking in what sounds like Kaine's grandma's voice. The only reason we know is because the shade goes, "Oh, it's your grandma." The shade is mimicking her voice and trying to tell Kaine, "Hey, listen, it's me, it's your grandma. Why don't you stop fighting and let me fucking kill you?" But Kaine snaps out of it as soon as she hears her grandma's voice say give up. She's like, "No, I know my grandma. She would never say that." So she basically goes berserk and then decides to try to kill the huge shade. What ends up happening is that while she's talking and speeching about, oh, my grandma would never say this, she then mentions just a little thing that becomes important later. She talks about how she's not comfortable in her own body. That's important. She finally kills the shade, and we see her floating around in a black void, and she basically gives up on life. She says, all I wanted to do was kill that shade. I did that. I made my purpose for life. Nier starts trying to yell at her to come back, and Kaine actually wakes up. Weiss is saying, you know what? Do we really need her? I don't think so. And Nier's like, no, what are you talking about? She's cool. We like her. And then Kaine wakes up and it's like, oh, what the hell's going on? And Nier, it's funny because I wrote specifically that this probably works better in Replicant than it does in Gestalt. But seeing in Gestalt 40-year-old Papa Nier on his hands and knees going like, yes, Kaine, we're friends, it comes off weird. Like if it was a teenager going, "Yes, Kaine, we're friends," it's fine. But Kaine, she looks a little young. It feels weird going, "Yeah, we're friends." We get to. Do you remember that scene? Was I wrong with feeling weird that I feel like
I
localization
definitely
things are
caught a
weird on
weird
this one?
vibe from it when it was Papa Nier, and I went back and I looked at Replicant, the English translation for Nier Replicant, and yeah, I definitely got a better vibe when it was Brother Nier. It might just be because of the whole age dynamic. It might just be that. I don't know. Well, I don't remember how old Kaine was, but you could definitely tell there was a big. It might just be that.
Now, Kaine, she's probably around Brother Nier's
That's what I would
age.
assume.
Like, that feels like that makes sense. I think maybe somewhere in the document I might have noted how old she is, but I don't think so. Well, either way, it's funny that you got this 40-year-old man going, we're friends. Regardless, Nier rolled a d20, so Kaine's like, you know what? I believe we're friends, so let's go
Yeah.
ahead and join up. Nier tells Kaine, like, hey, yeah, this is my mission. I'm trying to figure out how to cure the Black Scrawl for Yona. This is my daughter, all that, blah, blah, blah. Kaine goes, oh, actually, I know someone who has the Black Scrawl, and it sounds like he's doing fine. It's a city of Facade. It's in the desert. And you go back to your village, and you talk to Devla and Popa about it. And Kaine goes, hey, by the way, you can go into the village, but I don't want to. And you don't question it. Kaine, huge self-esteem issues. So I assume that it might have been a technical thing where they didn't want extra NPCs walking around the village with you, but I'm also pretty sure they integrated this limitation into the story. You did have to go through the village to get to Facade. So you go to Facade, there's a couple of wolves that are chasing you, but then they play a little cutscene of a shade wolf. Yeah, there's a wolf that's a shade now. Let's not question it. That makes me think, oh, okay, so does that mean that the Hamlin organization was grabbing animals and splitting them too? Or but you know what? I'm not gonna question. I'm just gonna say that they might have Noah's Ark
Yeah,
it.
they didn't really specify more
I
about
mean,
that.
that's
Yeah.
my assumption. They probably grabbed two of each animal and said, okay, we're going to gestaltize you, whatever, who cares? We'll copy a whole bunch of you so there's at least replicant animals around.
Makes me wonder if they started with mice or rats or anything, and I wonder how that would have went. Because that's where a lot of testing and fiction
I
happens
mean,
in the
yeah,
world.
it probably did.
Mice.
They probably did that before they started doing it to humans. But then again, it's a Hamlin organization, so probably they actually worked on humans, and then they told people, yeah, don't worry, we worked on rats and mice. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So that's my guess. Nier, Weiss, and Kaine, they get to Facade. Now, Facade is a weird ass place where apparently they're all wearing masks. There's like 100,000 rules that are there. They speak a completely different language, and you're just completely confused by everything. They assume that you are hostile until they see Kaine, and they're like, "Oh shit, it's Kaine! You know what? You're cool. Come on in." What you find out is that Kaine had saved one of the kids from Facade, and they said, "You know what? You cool. You can come in." What ends up happening is that you walk around in a small little comedic section where you keep trying to go to different people, and all of them are like, I can't speak your language. So you yourself go to NPCs, just keep getting denied, and it's like, do you speak English? Please. You're like, ah, shit, okay, that's not gonna work. After that, you get teleported back to the front, and you guys are just like, you know what? We're just gonna have to give up. I guess this isn't gonna work. But you run into a girl that trips and drops her fruit named Fyra. You pick up the fruit for her, you give it back to her, and then you realize that she's mute and she actually can't speak. So what she does is that she's sign languages. So apparently Weiss can understand this. Now we get to the next short story, A Little Princess. It is Fyra's short story. It's not that important, really. You just find out that Fyra has a mask on, one because of Facade requiring it, but 2, because she apparently uses it to cover the keloids caused by burns on her face. You find out that her parents are assholes who are incredibly vain, and because of the keloids that were on her face, they kicked her out because they have a fabric business, and they're like, you're ugly, you're going to get in the way of us trying to sell beauty. So we're going to get our servant to kick you out and leave you in facade. Asshole. So Fyra gets there and meets a little kid. The kid tries to play around with her, and she's just like, look, this is like the worst day of my life. Can you not do this right now? But the little kid's like, no, man, it's fine. Let's have fun. Let's break some rules. And she's like, this is my new home. I am not going to break rules on my first day here. This is all I have right now. And then he's like, okay, you know what? Fine. He goes over to one of the shopkeepers and is like, hey, I need you to hire her. And the shopkeeper goes, all right, okay, fine. After about 6 months or so, Fyra starts working and she eventually learns the language. However, one of the rules is that since she's not from Facade, she apparently isn't allowed to speak there. So she learns the language and then she signs back to them. The shop owner tells her, hey, I need you to sell all of your fruits today or you're fired. And she's like, I don't know where the hell this is coming from, but okay. So she tries to hustle really hard, and she realizes by the end of the day, it's just not going to happen. The kid shows back up, and he's like, okay, you know what? Let me buy them all off you. And I think there's a rule where she's like, no, that's not legal or something. And he's like, okay, how about this? We'll play a game, and if I lose this game, I can buy your fruits in 2 different ways. And she's like, you suck. That's not breaking the rules. They play the game, he intentionally loses, so he takes half of the fruit and then buys the other half. So that way she's not breaking the rules. She goes back to the shopkeeper and is like, hey, I sold them. And he goes, man, that's weird. I don't understand why that little kid decided to bet against me that you weren't going to sell them. And he's like, wait. She's like, wait. You're saying that this little kid that bought the fruits off of me was betting that I was going to fail? And he goes, yeah. I mean, the prince is pretty weird about these kind of games. And Fyra goes, wait, hold on. You're telling me that the little kid that I've been talking to was the Prince of Facade this entire time? And so she is so completely pissed that he didn't tell her who he was and that he was trying to get her kicked out had she not sold all the fruits. So she goes up to the prince, and this is the first time she's spoken in a couple of months, and is like, you fucking asshole. Why would you do this? Why are you trying to kick me out? Why do you continuously mess with me and everything, all of this? And then Fyra realizes, oh shit, I just yelled at the Prince of Facade. I am out of here. And then immediately, once she has this look of fear in her face, once the anger fades, the prince is like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. I did not want to hurt you. Look, I like you. I don't want to hurt you. All I want to do is be your friend. And then Fyra kind of relaxes a little, and she's just like, I don't really trust you yet. And he's like, don't worry, you will one day. She goes, okay, you know what? Fine. I think there's a rule that we have to listen to the prince anyways. And the prince is like, don't worry, man. You can break some rules. And she's like, I don't know about that. That's the story. It's just a little fun thing. It doesn't have anything too special. Back into the actual game. She tells you that Facade is a place with 124,000 plus rules. From there, she tells you, don't worry. Look, we can go up to the castle and we can figure out what's going on with the king. You go there, and all the guards are like, hey, yeah, the king who had Black Scrawl, dead. Yeah, he's dead. There's no chance. And Nier's like, oh, okay, that's not good. The guards then say, hey, the prince is missing and we can't get him. And they're like, wait, what do you mean you can't get him? And the prince is apparently in a temple that they are all forbidden to enter if they are not the prince. So what ends up happening is like, wait, we have a rule to go save the prince, but we also have a rule of we can't enter where he's at. Shit. However, Nier, of course, being the guy who's like, you know what, I'm a handyman, I can do it all. I'm going to go ahead and go save him. I'm not breaking any rules if I do it. So what ends up happening is that you go into another dungeon. You go in there, there's a couple of different things that happens in the gameplay. You go into a room and it's like, you can't jump. Fight these enemies. You can't block. Fight these enemies. You can't shoot. Fight these enemies. It's nothing really too special gameplay wise. After that, you get into a boss. You fight the boss, and you find out that the prince is in there. And apparently, what he's doing is that he was trying to find the mask that his father wore so he could show Facade that, hey, look, if I have this mask, I am going to try and lead us as well as he did. So, okay, that's fine. The other thing as well is that they have another video game shout out where what ends up happening is that whenever the Prince of Facade grabs the mask, he holds it up as if it were a Zelda thing and he goes, da-da-da-da. Of course, it's not da-da-da-da because, you know, I'm pretty sure Nintendo would have their lawyers just ready to have another stake.
Instant cease and desist.
Yes, pretty much instant. So they do like something like that. Just something that sounds close enough and even have the item float up in his hand. You know what it's referencing,
It's like a little,
but it's enough that,
you know.
Yoko Taro can still
You know,
afford some sake. Yeah, exactly. After you save the prince, the entire congregation of Facade, they're like, wow, thank you for saving our prince. You can have one wish in accordance to our rules. What do you want? And Nier goes, well, you know what? Institute Rule 0, that you can veto rules. Which, I'm actually kind of shocked they didn't have that. I would have thought that there'd be like some sort of amendment process where they'd be like, well, you know what? That rule is stupid. Pull it back. But then I assume since it's 124,000 rules, how many people are actually remembering these and going, yeah, you know what? We should delete some of these. So after that, you're done with Facade. You go back home and Yona asks you to stay the night. You remember how I told you that I would save Scum to see both options? I didn't do that because what kind of fucking monster would tell Yona no? So that's what you got from there. After that, you stay the night. Oh, wait, no, hold on. I just realized you probably stay the night regardless because this still has to happen. So even if you say no, Weiss probably goes, I don't know, man, that's pretty heartless of you. And then you get guilted into saying. So that's my guess. What ends up happening is that you go into, I guess, a text adventure, but you're not really choosing what to write down. I call it text adventure so you can get an idea of what the screen looks like. It's just text popping up on a screen. Nier has a dream of a white-haired boy. He is speaking, but no sound is coming out of his mouth. He begins reading his lips, and he sees a couple of different words. He sees him say sealed verse, the word dream, and he says forest of myth. You wake up, Nier is talking to Weiss. Weiss is like, man, you didn't get any sleep, did you? And Nier's like, I had a weird dream. I don't want to talk about it, though. Yona tells him, oh, I had that exact same dream. Yeah, there was a white-haired kid. And Nier looks at her like, oh, okay, that was, I should probably figure out what that means. Right over here, because I knew that there was going to be some stuff that happens after this, I decided to go and get more quests out of the way. Quest, item unknown. A Facade woman needs 10 rounded, edible, striped items for her daughter, but she can't get the food for her son or daughter's birthday, and asks for the specific item because of some rule from Facade. I don't know. Rounded, edible, striped items. That's watermelons. I bought 10 watermelons and gave it to her. Get paid. That's it. Apology from a fool. Strange Things shopkeeper had cheated on his wife and wanted to get her a fur coat. I killed 10 wolves and then gave him the pelts. I delivered it. And I got paid. That's it. Quest. Tangled message. It was just a game of telephone. Talk to one character, give them the next message, keep it going, deliver it, get paid. Quest. The littlest hero. A guy's son has disappeared to fight wolves so he can be accepted as a warrior. You go and help him kill the wolves. The dad goes, okay, cool, I guess he killed those wolves. He's going to be a warrior now. Get paid. That's it. Quest. The missing girl. A girl is missing. You find a little blood spot. You think it's the boyfriend. They apparently got into a fight, and what ends up happening is that he apparently did think he killed his girlfriend, so he dumps the body. But then you go find the body, and apparently she was just knocked out. That's it. It's the reason I'm running through these so quickly is because I don't even think that most of these have like interesting dialogue enough. Most of these just end up being do things and occasionally hear Nier and Weiss or Kaine talk. So it's nothing really too special. Quest, Yona's gift. She tries to cook for you again. She tries to kill you again. Yeah. After this, you go... So, sorry. Back to the story. Back after your time in Facade, Popola tells you, hey, there's a letter from the mayor of the Forest of Myth. And he starts talking just normally like, hey, you know, there's some weird things here. But then eventually what happens is that in the letter, the word dream starts appearing just randomly. It'll be like, oh, we have dream things that we need to worry about, until eventually the letters start devolving to just saying the word dream over and over again, until literally it's just strings of rewriting the word dream again and again and again and again. After that, Popola's like, hey, you know, probably go get that taken care of. Quests again. Quest, belated letter. A man has a business and wants to get his girlfriend out to seafront with him. You deliver a letter and a flower to her in the area, but she's not there. You are attacked by a shade that's holding that smashed flower, same as the one that you're given. You go back to the man and you tell her, hey, we tried to deliver the flower to your girlfriend. We saw a shade that had the exact same flower. I'm assuming the shade killed your girlfriend. And he's like, well, okay, I don't think you're right, though. I think maybe a shade was just holding that flower, so I'm going to keep this shop going because I'm pretty sure she's not dead. I got to have money for when she comes back. And you're just like, ooh, okay, you know what? I'm not going to dig in deeper to that. Quest, Runaway Son. A father wants his son back. You go back to his son and you tell him, hey, your dad wants you. And the son goes, you want? Fine, okay, I'll go back. You go back to the village and the dad is gone and he didn't pay you to do the mission. You talk to a guard and the guard's like, hey, did you see that man that was here? And Nier's like, no. And the guard goes, oh, that guy that was here, he owes money to everyone in the village and then he ran. The son was trying to run away from his asshole dad because he didn't want to be a thief like his dad. And he wasn't going to join his dad until you told him to came back. Congrats, you're an asshole. And you're like, oh, okay, I didn't want to do that. It's fine. It's okay. It's nothing too great. Quest, On the Wings of Eagles. The barkeep needs an eagle egg for his grandma's drink. Of course, the grandma from earlier that had digestive issues. You grab the eagle egg, and you know what? Here's the thing. The eagle egg is very important because it is a very rare item, so I saved scum this one. I went and I delivered the egg, and she's like, oh, cool, thanks. And then I reset it because I still needed that eagle egg to get the platinum. So, did I do this quest? Yes. Is there a log that shows I did? No. Quest, Pride of a Lover. Guy has a gold digger, and apparently he's just like, nah, man, she's not a gold digger. She's just high class. And he asks us to get her some valuable metals. Now, here's the thing. I decided to save scum this one because the metal that he wanted was very valuable and it'd be useful for me for platinuming. So I saved scum this one. I decided to give it to him, and the guy gives you $30,000. Then Weiss is just like, hey, Nier, you know this is wrong. Why aren't you doing anything about it? And he's just like, look, man, I'm not getting involved with that. I'm not doing that. Then, at least there's one quest that was worth it. Quest, Closure. The postman just has to call you and he tells you, hey, I want to tell you something. You go over and he tells you the lighthouse lady has passed away. She had a smile on her face, and he wants to know what you told her. Did you tell her the truth or did you tell her the lie? Regardless, the reaction is still the same. He just thanks you that you helped her and that that he's still very hurt that she's left. That's it. No payment or anything. That's it. That is all the side quests, at least for the prologue. Thank God it's done.
It's nice that they had that little addition at the end, though, like that they had a quest that kind of lets you figure out what happened. Of course, we kind of knew she was going to die anyway, but it's nice to know that it's there, and we did have, of course, what the title says, closure. Nice that we had that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm kind of glad because I felt like it would have been a cop-out if you then found out she died off screen. The fact that they made it an important note to actually go back to her, I was like, thank you for doing that. I wrote in big, bold letters because I was so excited, all Act 1 quests complete. Because I can tell you right now, these fucking quests, for the most part, suck. I can definitively say that now. Continue on. You go over to the Forest of Myth. There's a disease called the Death Dream that has been spread apparently by people speaking to each other. And what ends up happening is that they speak to each other and it causes people to fall asleep forever. You speak to the mayor that is there, and he just tells you, oh man, this is just a whole bunch of weird stuff. I don't really know what's going on. But as you're speaking to him, he starts infecting you. The text at the bottom of the screen starts increasing and increasing until it takes over the entire screen, and all it is just text on a screen. There is a narrator now that is writing in the stuff. So they're like, oh man, Nier decided to touch his face. And then there's actual dialogue of Nier going, wait, I didn't do that. What the hell's going on? So basically, there's a narrator that's writing in stuff that is making them do things. You play a text adventure from here. You either play along or you don't. And if you play along, you get to the end of it and you're gifted a sealed verse. It's just something that I thought was pretty cool. It was that first flash that I had of like, oh man, yeah, there's that weird Yoko Taro shift that I always like. So really, it just becomes a text adventure. It is just text on a screen and you're reading it, and it's funny because both Nier and Weiss are just like, no, what are you talking about? How are you misunderstanding who we are as people this much that you're saying that we're doing things that we didn't? Like, I wrote one where Weiss looks up to the sky for inspiration, and Weiss is like, dude, I'm not even looking up. What the hell am I being inspired by? So, of course, all that happens, and you finish that up. You get a sealed verse, you're good. You go back to Popola.
It is definitely one of the things that helps you kind of bridge together. Yeah, NieR Replicant and AUTOMATA, or of course Gestalt in this case, are connected because both games have these parts where the gameplay changes significantly. Like in this one, we have a text adventure. In AUTOMATA, it becomes like what are those called? Bullet hells. It's kind of like that. I like that.
So I
Both
should
of the
probably
games
mention
do
it,
this
but I mean, there are segments here that get slight bullet hell where the camera will shift and you'll be either like
right.
at a side profile or a top screen that has a little bit of that bullet hell look to it. But it, you know what? I don't have anywhere else to fit it. We already talked about the gameplay, but here it is. The gameplay shifts again. It's still pretty mediocre, anyways. After you're done with the Forest of Myth, you get back to Popola, and Popola thanks you for whatever you did at the Forest of Myth. She tells you, hey, by the way, Yona said she needed you for a reason. You go to Yona, and she tells you, hey, I have a pen pal. Can you help them? And Nier's like, wait, what the? Who are you? What are you doing? Who are you talking to? And Yona's like, hey, I just have a friend. I need you to help out. You leave, and then Weiss is like, why? Come on, man. You don't need to be so hostile. That kid could be your son-in-law or your brother-in-law, depending on your game. And you're just like, I need you to shut up. I need you to not talk about my sister and or daughter like this. You go over to where the letter came from, and there is a creepy ass butler. The entire game is in color, but as soon as you get to this mansion, the color's completely sucked out. Everything's in black and white except the actual characters. So you go in, and this butler's like, ah, yes, Master Nier, I'm glad you're here. You go in, and the game starts trying to pull off a little bit of a horror aspect. But here's the thing that's really funny about it. You remember how I keep telling you that this game keeps referencing other stuff? This is probably the last one that the game does. But this mansion is a complete ripoff of Resident Evil 1. You have the entire opening just looking like the Spencer Mansion's Grand Hall. And then you also have the camera angles in the game basically just ripping off the fixed camera angles from Resident Evil 1 through 3. And then you also have the entire horror aspect of it. It's just so obvious, but it's one of those things where I don't really understand why it's here. I assume it's just that Yoko Taro's like, I like Resident Evil, here we go. I like Zelda, here we go. Like, I assume that's just what it is. You get into the mansion, and the butler is there like, oh, you guys are here for a reason. I'll come back. Of course, because video game characters can't ever sit in one spot and wait, you keep trying to look around like, why are we here? But what ends up happening is that Kaine disappears. Suddenly you start looking for Kaine. In the process of Kaine, you find good boy Emil, the blind kid, and he is Lord of the Manor. He is a completely normal kid. All he does is that he's wearing a bandana. And what you find out is that this is the kid that he was dreaming about earlier, that in all likelihood Yona was dreaming about either. The butler comes in and he's just like, oh yeah, by the way, Yona wasn't writing those letters. I wrote those letters to her. I was kind of writing to you, Nier, but then she responded. I was trying to get into contact with you to see if there's a way that you can get Emil his eyesight back. Nier is just like, I don't know, man. And then the butler's like, no, you understand. I have an idea of what I need to do. I just need you to help me get into the library and fight whatever enemies in there. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can kill stuff. You go in there and you encounter Grimoire Noir. But we have no idea about this at all. We just think it's another floating book. Even Grimoire Weiss doesn't recognize him. But there's a reason for that. So you get in there, you beat Grimoire Noir. He doesn't say a word about it. But all that happens is that there is a paper in there about annulling the petrification process and a sealed verse. That's pretty much it. Nothing too special. I have to take a small break for lore. Had Grimoire Noir and Grimoire Weiss just fused there at that point, all their problems would have been fixed. All of their problems. We'll talk about that later. Once you leave the mansion, there is a shared moment between Kaine and Emil. Emil is just kind of sad that Kaine is leaving, and then Kaine just tells him, hey, look, your eyes, you shouldn't be ashamed of that. It is who you are. You shouldn't be ashamed of that. And she whispers something into his ear that we can only assume what it is because we are not given confirmation of what it is. All we know is that Emil is completely shocked by it, and whenever I mention it, we'll mention back to this. After this, you go back to the village. Yona is getting worse again. Popola tells Nier, hey, you're going to have to get some pain relief again for her. As you're looking for pain relief, Emil collapses at the south gate. You bring him to Popola, and Popola is like, okay, we got to check on this kid. However, as Emil is slowly passing out, he tells him, hey, look, there's a huge band of shades that are about to attack the village. And that ends up happening. The village, it gets attacked. There's a huge shade that is trying to reach the library, and you just start trying to fight him. But what ends up happening is that there is a mysterious figure named the Shadow Lord who comes in and beats your ass completely. He puts you and Weiss in a little like electric bubble or something. He just starts shocking them like if he was the Emperor from Star Wars. Grimoire Noir takes this chance to talk to Grimoire Weiss, and they start talking about how we have a higher purpose. Merging us together will unleash the shades on the world. And, you know, probably Grimoire Noir should have known maybe not to phrase it like that, because Weiss tells him, hey, I'm going to need you to shut the hell up. I don't want to do any of that. After that shock is done, the Shadow Lord takes Yona and bails the hell out, and he leaves a gigantic shade for them to fight. Nier and Kaine and Emil all try to fight this shade, but they just realize this is not going to happen. They lock the shade in the basement to the library, and Kaine's holding the door. And then this is when we get the magical line. Weiss, you dumbass. Start making sense, you rotten book, or you're going to be sorry. Maybe I'll rip out your pages one by one, or maybe I'll throw you in a goddamn furnace. How could someone with a big brain get hypnotized like a little bitch, huh? Oh, Shadow Lord, I love you, Shadow Lord. Kim give Weiss a big sloppy kiss, Shadow Lord. Now pull your head out of your goddamn ass and start fucking helping us. And after she yells at Weiss loud enough, Weiss wakes up and goes, oh man, I don't think I've been called a little bitch before. And it's fucking perfect. Weiss wakes up, starts helping out, and Kaine is holding the door, and Emil realizes that the only way that they can lock the door, or at least what Kaine realizes, is that Emil is going to have to petrify Kaine into the door to keep that shade locked in. Emil realizes he has to do this. At this point, he has a little bit of a connection to Kaine, so he feels bad. That ends up ending the prologue. Mugetsu, overall, the prologue to Nier. How do you feel about this? Because personally, I'll go ahead and kick off to give you a little bit of time to think. Personally, the prologue feels so much like just this is kind of empty calories. We're just here to table set. Nothing is really hard hitting yet. This is all to try to normalize you to everything that's there. So then once shit starts getting weird, we have enough toys to play around with. Tossing it to you.
Yeah, that's how I kind of saw it. I saw the whole thing as more so like very slow burn setting up, and of course, once the prologue ends, we get to all of the crazy stuff with Shadow Lord and Grimoire Noir, of course, kind of getting petrified. I do think most of the prologue is, of course, what it's called a prologue. It's going to set up everything. All the crazy stuff happens once that's out of the way. That's how I always saw
It's just a shame though because the prologue, I think at this point it had taken me like about 25 hours to do everything I did. So all of the quests, everything, all of it's about 25 hours into the game, and that was just the prologue.
I'm not gonna lie, I think a lot of people took quite a long time with the prologue. I mean, the person whose playthrough I was watching for Replicant, the English translation I mentioned
Mm.
earlier, they had 47 total parts, and it took them 20 parts to get through the prologue. Yeah, about almost half of their playthrough was the prologue. So I was like, wow, a lot of time on that.
Yeah, no kidding. Like I do know that A Run. So I'm just gonna call it A Run for now. But the second half of the
Hmm.
game, A Run, yeah, that one kind of does. It goes over quick once you start doing B and C run. So I understand that, but still, it's one of those things that I still feel like. So I've said multiple times that NieR Replicant V1.2, even if it fixes all the issues with Gestalt and Replicant, I still think that it's going to probably be like a good foot or yard away from the heights that Automata hits. And this is one of those things that I feel like in just the structure of the game, it's not going to be able to
Hmm.
do the same thing. Automata was brilliant in that you felt the ending once. While every time you play Gestalt and Replicant, if you get to all the endings, by the time you get to the end, you're just skipping all the
Right.
dialogue until you hit the new stuff. So the high emotional moments just kind of wash over you, and you're like, oh, yeah, I guess we're doing this again, huh? Uh, to whom do you speak? How do you get immortality? Like I okay, that was way too deep cut. We aren't even there yet. um, so yeah, it's one of those things that structural is already baked into the game that I can't see it ever getting better than Automata. Any opinions about that?
No, not really. I agree with you.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so look at that. An hour and five, and we're hitting A run. I don't think this is going to take too long. Well, I mean, I'm going to eat my words. A run.
Yeah, let's not jinx it.
We are now into A run, the actual primary game that you'll be playing. Well, not really, because the prologue's longer, but look, you understand. A run. It takes place 5 years after the prologue's end. I wrote this down because I like my joke. Nier is now punished Nier. A man denied his Yona, which is accurate. This man has just completely been dedicating the last 5 years to trying to find Yona. He is just bloodlust. He is destroying these shades with little to no mercy. He used to have a little sword. Now this man's carrying around like the sword that's on the cover. Like this sword is weighty as hell. That sword looks at least double his height and at least triple his weight. And this man is swinging this shit with two hands. So he has been making it his life's mission to make sure that he gets back Yona. He starts fighting shades that apparently regularly show up within the village, so shit's only getting worse. He's been looking for Yona and Shadow Lord for the last 5 years, and just nothing is working. Now, small segue for some Nier lore. Apparently, this is a small question that someone asked Yoko, and I had no idea that this was even a thing. The question is, why are there white flowers in the pond near Nier's house? I didn't know there were white flowers in the pond next to his house. So, apparently, this small question literally had an answer. Yoko said he was trying to plant lunar tears for when Kaine and Yona came back, but every time that he tried to farm them, he failed and would throw the failed white lunar tears into the lake. I didn't realize this was a thing. And now I feel like I need to probably replay the game, or at least just look it up on YouTube to see if they are actually there or not.
Well, you don't have to replay it. It's coming out on Friday.
True, but oh yeah, you're right. They might actually end up keeping that detail in there. At least I hope.
They probably will. If they're including cut content, I'd imagine they would keep it. So I would just wait.
True. It just feels like that's such a small thing that I wouldn't be shocked if someone in the development team was like, oh, wait, did we put that in there? Oh, well, obviously I read the interview with Yoko Taro back in 2011 when he was doing the circuit. Of course we put that in there. Like, I've been saying that I'm doing a spoiler cast for this shit. Like, I can understand if I know this.
I'd agree with you that I would understand if a dev team took it out, but I wouldn't understand if it was Yoko Taro's dev. That's what I'm going to say. I might be kissing butt a little too hard, but I wouldn't think his dev team.
Yoko Taro loves his sake, so it makes it really hard to keep track of what he probably knows. So his ideas while he's on sake is fucking great. You just write those down, and once he's sober, you kind of hammer it out. This sounds like something that he was drinking a little bit. He's like, what if NieR, oh man, what if NieR was trying to get these flowers for these girls, but he sucks at it, so he just kept throwing them away. And then one guy in the office was like, hey, that's not a bad idea, and just threw them on there.
Sounds like him.
Yeah. This is something that if it's there, wow, holy shit, that's attention to detail. I'm not going to count on it just yet because I'm ready to doubt myself. Now, once you get done with beating the shades that were in that section, there's something so small that once again fucked up my time clock. Apparently there's a small section where Devla's and Popola's Song of the Ancients themes overlap each other, and oh my god, it's so awesome. Like, they sound so good as separate songs, but apparently they overlap each other. And I was like, is this a glitch? What the hell's going on? So I quit, and then I jumped back in, and I realized, no, it was intentional. So I kept a save on a USB if I ever want to hear it again. Have you heard it, or do you remember it, or no?
I don't remember that, but I'm going to definitely look out for it when I do my playthrough on Friday. That sounds really nice.
I really hope it's there, because this is such a small little thing that I hope does not get left behind, because hearing that two versions on top of each other is just so fucking good. Okay, continuing the story. NieR goes to the library.
Wait, I do want to say I love how in the document you put "oh holy fuck." I don't know if it's intentional. I love how you put it word for word. It's funny to me. Oh holy fuck! I would never write that down.
Like I said, once this is all done, I am releasing the document, and yes, so verbatim, I wrote, oh, holy fuck. I don't know if it's intentional, but Popola and Devla's themes are overlapping each other with Devla singing. It's incredible. I swear that half of my clock time is just listening to Devla sing Song of the Ancients.
It's like you were just talking with yourself in the document. Like you were just typing and you go, oh, holy fuck. I don't know if it's intentional, but these themes are overlapping. That's awesome.
So the way that I did it is that I would go into my bedroom. That's where the PS3 is. I would play. My wife should probably be on her phone. I would be playing, and then every few seconds I would drop the controller and start writing down notes. So as you can tell, I was very excited about this.
This is just mid-discovery. Like, as soon as you discovered it, you were just like, oh, hey, they're overlapping. Nice.
Oh, I put down the controller. I was like, yeah, we're going to hang out here for a little bit. Hey.
I get it.
I would look at my wife and be like, hey, you want to just hang out for a little bit? Like, what's going on with your day? You know, we have music in the background now.
I get it.
Continuing the story. NieR has been destroying these shades, and he is completely worn down. Devla and Popola look at him and they're like, hey, are you okay? Like, you need to slow it down. And NieR's just like, he almost tells him to shut up, basically. Like, that's the energy he's bringing. He's like, I need you to not talk until I have my Yona. If I don't have my Yona, do not tell me shit. Just a small thing that's foreshadowing. NieR gets calmed down a little bit. They're like, hey, look, we need to back off a little bit. And NieR's like, okay, you know what, fine. It de-escalates a little bit, and then he makes a joke about how, oh man, I'm getting tired and I'm only looking older. but you two, you guys are the same age since I met you. And then you're like, ha ha ha, it's because they're androids and androids don't age.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and fun fact in Replicant, what happens is they'll comment on how he's looking taller, and then he says, "Yeah, you haven't really changed a bit though." And of course, androids. But I like how in Replicant it's gonna be that he's getting taller because, of course, if you've seen how he looks, there's childhood version and there's adulthood, and of course we're in adulthood. He definitely looks way taller, way taller. His hair has even changed completely.
So,
About
oh,
halfway through.
oh my god, yes, we were finally getting close. We were getting close. However, it's going to be a no, the good thing is that C run is just going to be me bitching. So that's going to be good.
I will say that I do need to go around 10, but that's we're barely halfway through that whole time, so I'm sure we can get pretty far tonight.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure if we end up needing to, it might just be a small pickup, and that's completely fine.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. We should definitely be able to finish this by the next time at the latest.
oh yeah, so definitely. It's going to be the Nier 2010 Spoilercast trilogy, and it's going to be my greatest work.
Oh yeah.
All right. So once you are done talking to them, Popola, before you leave, goes, "Oh, hey, by the way, Emil found a paper in his library about how to unpetrify Kaine." And you're like, "Oh, okay, all right, let's go ahead and figure that out." But here's the problem. There is a quest that I've been doing the entire game that I haven't written about because it's a 10-part quest. It is called The Fisherman's Gambit. And I've been fishing in this fucking game for so much. And the fishing grates on you until eventually I learned to love it. And I just kept fishing and fishing and fishing. I just kept fishing. This is the quest. A fisherman demands different fish to be caught. This man kidnaps you for long stretches of time to teach you how to fish. It's hilarious. You'll catch one fish, and then he's like, "Oh, cool. I guess you're ready to learn the next thing that will make you a better fisher." And it'll be like, hour later, 2 hours later, 4 hours later. There's literally a time this man kidnaps you for 6 months. It's fucking hilarious. All right, he kidnaps you, and you go on a ship for 6 months, and he and Weiss are just like, "What is wrong with you? We're just trying to learn how to catch a fucking marlin. Why are you doing this to us?" And he's just like, "Hey, man, you want to be a better fisherman or not? This is what you got to do." And eventually, Nier, after the 6 month stretch, looks at him and goes, "If you ever kidnap me like that again, I will kill you. Like, I will straight up stab you." And the fisherman's like, "Okay, you want fine. You can keep learning from me. I won't make you spend that much time, but you're still gonna need some time." So, of course, 10-part side quest, and after I think like maybe the sixth or seventh one, he's just like, "Okay, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't kidnap you for 6 months." You keep fishing, and you keep giving him the next fish. He's like, "Okay, cool. You finally did it." You get to the final quest, and he finally asks you to catch a legendary fish that even he hasn't caught. You catch it, and then you go back to where he was. You find out that there is a man there, and he tells you that the current fisherman had war wounds from when he was a mercenary, and that apparently he did some really fucked up jobs that everyone at Seafront looks down on him because of. And then you find out that apparently you were his only friend, and that the reason that he puts you through all the fishing things is that since he realized he didn't have anyone else in the world, he wanted to be sure that he could still pass on his fishing knowledge to someone at least. Finally, another decent quest. Thank you, Yoko. Finally. We'll
Thank
get
you.
to the other quest that I did. Life in the Sands. A facade dweller wants seeds. You deliver seeds. Weiss makes a joke and going, "Hey, don't use these seeds to create a cult or something." And then apparently the facade dweller goes, "Oh shit, he fucking knows." And then Weiss and Nier kind of laugh, and then the facade dweller goes, "Oh, thank God, they don't realize that I actually am going to start a cult devoted to flowers." And then she laughs along. You get paid and you leave.
That is definitely Yoko Taro writing. If I could ever give an example, that is definitely writing from him.
That shit was actually pretty funny. I was like, you know what? That one's decent. Most of these side quests still suck, though. After I did those side quests, I went back to the story again. You go back to the mansion, the butler is there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, Emil is somewhere." You go and you try to find where he is. Apparently, he's underground. And what ends up happening is that you go to this water fountain and you see these people petrified in stone. And you realize the implication is, oh shit, I guess Emil accidentally froze these people into stone. The butler tells you as well that Emil had found a paper describing Plan Snow White, a project in charge of how to cancel magic implementation, including transformations and specifically petrification. So, in other words, this is probably everything tied to his short story, The Stone Flower. Plan Snow White was probably all of that to try to create Emil so he could stop Halua. That is exactly where we're going into. You go into the basement of the mansion and you realize that this mansion is apparently a front, while underneath it's a Hamlin organization laboratory. Is this explained in the game? No. This is all assumptions that are blatantly there, and so we're going to take them. From the papers that you keep finding in there, the papers mention number 6 and number 7 in the plans. Number 6 apparently is a weapon built by Project Gestalt, and of course we end up finding out that number 6 is Halua, Emil's sister. Emil remembers that they were being used as experiments to fight shades, and that Emil was supposed to be the failsafe to stop Halua if she ever lost control. Now, this is all doled out to you. You're playing underground, and it feels like it's supposed to be a knockoff of Diablo because of that exact camera angle that they have, kind of a very isometric feel. It's nothing to mention. It's just that, once again, Yoko Taro is doing different things instead of just making you play the same thing over and over again. You go down to the basement and you find the ultimate weapon, Halua. You fight her. Before you start fighting her, Emil gets eaten by Halua, so you start fighting her. You beat her and you kill her, but Emil finally turns into the Emil that we all know, the moon head man and the skeleton with a staff and just kind of a robe around him. Emil is completely heartbroken that he looks the way he does, and he just doesn't want Nier to look at him. But what ends up happening is that Nier just tells Emil, like, no, don't worry, it doesn't matter what you look like. I still care about you. You are still you at the end of the day. Emil, for the first time since he turned into the ultimate weapon, he doesn't have to worry about petrifying people. So for the first time, he finally gets to see Nier, and he says, "Oh wow, you look pretty cool." And then I wrote specifically in the notes, ... It'll probably make more sense in Replicant. Mugetsu, do you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
How do you feel about Papa Nier versus Brother Nier? Because I gotta admit, when it comes to original Papa Nier, I'm like, this guy is ugly, but it's fine. But then when he becomes Punished Nier, I just look at him like, why is there like this black BDSM thong that's on your face? And then I look at younger Brother Nier, and I'm like, you know what? You just look like a kid. That's fine. And then when he becomes Punished Nier, I'm just like, yeah, you look like a kid that fucks. You're cool.
I don't know. I always loved the design on Brother Nier the most. Like, I know as soon as I got the outfit for A2 and Automata, I never took it off. I don't know, because I like the eye patch thing. Well, I'm assuming it's like an eye patch, and it kind of looks like how the blindfolds work in Nier Automata. But I would say I always preferred Brother Nier's design. I mean, the fur he's got on that outfit, oh man, dude. I wish I could wear an outfit like that. I love it. That's probably the one thing that's gonna bug me playing the prologue of the game is that no offense to younger Brother Nier, but I just think he holds no candle to his time skip design. I love his boots, I love his fur, I love his sleeves and his vest, I even love his hair. I cannot wait to see older Nier and after that time skip. I can't wait because it's gonna look so good in that engine. I love his.
Younger Brother Nier don't got no drip, while we know that older Punished Brother Nier, he got the fucking drip. We fucking know it.
I can't lie, younger Brother Nier's hair, it looks so goofy. I mean, I know that this is a game where people don't exactly look realistic, but I just don't know. It looks like he's wearing a wig. Like, I don't understand how hair could. I can understand how hair becomes like long, straight down, spiky, but I'm looking at a picture of him now, and that hair, I just don't see how anyone could ever have hair like that. Like, how is it sticking up in the front, going all the way to the side, sticking up in the back, and he's got like a ponytail? I don't understand that design, honestly.
I don't like Brother Nier's design, at least younger Brother Nier, just because I just look at him and he just. I don't know. I just look at him and I'm like, you look like a kid. That's it. I don't look at him and I feel it. I don't feel anything. But then I look at Brother Nier, I'm just like, oh my god, this is the final form. This is what I wanted.
The fur at the top of his boots with like the X pattern chains, the sleeves with the fur on the wrist. Oh man, dude. I love black fur, and it looks so good on this outfit. He looks like he would fuck anyone up. Not only does it look like he fucks, but he looks like he would fuck everyone up.
Ladies want to be with him, men want to be him.
Exactly.
That's who you're fucking dealing with when it comes to punished Brother Nier. Oh, good shit, man.
Wait,
yeah.
what's that one meme? It's like, he went from "Hello, it's nice to meet you, sir," to "Your daughter calls me daddy too." That's exactly what happened.
I'll have your daughter home before 10 to I'll have her whenever the fuck I want.
There you go. That's exactly what it was.
All right, now, yeah, you have Emil in his final ultimate weapon form. You have baller ass Nier. Of course, you see, I'm glad I made the choice to call this Nier 2010 spoiler cast instead of Nier Gestalt, because then I'd be probably still talking about Papa Nier and just being like, oh, you know what? I guess someone thinks he looks cool, but no, Nier 2010. We can jump around because both of them came in 2010. Whee! All right, continuing on. After you have Emil and you have Nier, they leave and they were able to find the info of how to unpetrify Kaine. They go over to the library and they unpetrify her. She is no longer stone stuck on the door. What ends up happening is that shade that they locked away is still pissed as hell, and he comes out swinging. So you end up fighting, and the shade just goes down very quickly. Nier makes it a point to be like, oh man, my sword is lighter. And Weiss is like, nah, man, the sword's not lighter. You got better. And Nier's like, hell fucking yeah, let's wreck this shit. You end up defeating this, and Kaine ends up slowly waking up, and Emil realizes that the reason he had a connection to Kaine so quickly is that he was apparently getting Kaine mixed up with his sister. And of course, since his sister was almost 1,000 years ago, it's understandable why Emil didn't remember his sister at all until he went down to the basement. The best thing, the best thing about this entire section is that Kaine doesn't even fucking blink when she sees Emil. Emil is finally in his Moon Man skeleton fit, and Kaine just like, oh, Emil, what are you doing here? I'm so glad you're here. You're great. And Emil is so thrown off that she doesn't even react, that he doesn't even acknowledge it. He's just like, oh, you still recognize it's me? And Kaine is like, yeah, why wouldn't I? Oh, I love this. Not only that, Nier sees Kaine. Apparently, the petals that he gave up on, he did nail it. He did have lunar tears. He gave Kaine lunar tears as a welcome back.
I
And
love that moment.
oh my god. This once you start getting the four of them, Kaine, Weiss, Emil, and Nier all together, you just start getting good shit. And this is what you get.
Absolutely.
And then the scene is ruined. Devil and Popola grab them and they go into the office, and they're just like, hey, by the way, your friends, the girl that is completely vulgar and is just wearing that skimpy outfit the entire time, and your other friend who's a skeleton dude with a moon face that just keeps smiling at everyone.
It looks a lot like the game director Yoko Taro.
Yeah, your friend Yoko Taro, like you can still smell the alcohol in his breath. They can't stay here. And Nier's just like, what in the very fuck are you talking about? You're telling me that all those villagers out there want them out when they just saved the entire village from that angry ass shade. And Nier is so pissed. Kaine and Emil are just like, you know what? Okay, let's just not try and cause any trouble. We get it. We're weird. Nier, just back off. We'll do what we need to do. And NieR just goes, this isn't fucking fair. This isn't fucking fair. And Devil and Popola are saying the exact same thing. It's like, yeah, we know. We're sorry. After that, you get another text adventure. Not exactly text adventure. It's more of just text on the screen. NieR has dreams, and he's just talking about how fucking pissed he is at Devil and Popola and the entire village. He starts talking about how he's just like, I want to wring all their necks. I just want to stab Popola. Like, he starts going really fucking dark. And then he realizes, wait, Kaine and Emil have been sleeping outside the village this entire time, and I've never once considered to let them sleep inside. So that scene where Kaine goes, "Oh, well, you know what? I don't want to go into the village." You could assume that for the last 5 years, Kaine just kept sleeping outside the village, and NieR just did not realize this was a thing until finally this moment. Now, this is where we segue into a short story between Kaine and Emil called Straight is the Gate, at least in Japan, but the translated title is The Narrow Gate. Now, this is probably one of the most depressing short stories. It is a short story about Kaine and Emil's time outside of the village. All right, let's get into this. The village
Really?
is in festival, and for some reason, and both Kaine and Emil have no idea. It's already dark. They just know that there's a party inside the village. Emil says, "Oh man, it sounds like they're having fun in there." And Kaine just thinks to herself, "That's the fifth time already." Emil out loud says, "I wonder if NieR's having fun right now." And apparently he says it in a conflicting tone because he really does hope that NieR is having fun, but he's really sad that he can't join in either. Kaine just refuses to speak about it because she does not want to show weakness. There's a reason for that. Apparently, the previous night, Popola comes out to them and tells them, "Hey, look, I want to give the villagers one night, just one night, where they don't have to worry about the shades hurting them." And Kaine and Emil both know that Popola is just being really broad, because what she means is that she wants NieR to relax more than anything else. It's not like Kaine and Emil really care about the other villagers, they only care about NieR, so they know exactly what the subtext is. Popola asks them, "Can you stand guard during the festival so the villagers can relax?" And both Kaine and Emil just begrudgingly go, "You know what? It's for NieR. Fine." The very next morning, the morning of the festival, NieR comes out and he tells them, like, "Hey guys, you hear about the festival?" And both Kaine and Emil are just like, "Ooh, yeah, we heard about it." And NieR tells them, "Oh, hey, you know what? Cool. I'll tell Devil and Popola if you guys can come in. I'm gonna yell at all the fucking villagers if I have to get you in here." And both Kaine and Emil are like, "Oh, no, you know what? No, it's fine. It's fine." And then NieR goes, "Oh, well, if you guys don't want to go, I won't go." And Kaine and Emil go, "No, no, 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 no. You still go. You should still go. You need to relax." And then NieR kind of begrudgingly goes, "Okay, all right, fine. I won't ask. It's okay." We then jump to the actual night. Now, here's the quote of when NieR kind of disagrees with them. "Then Kaine and Emil should rest easy for tonight. Let's go to the festival together. I'll ask Popola if you guys can join." NieR was completely innocent in his proposal. However, seeing his pale face being lit up by a healthy smile, Kaine dug her nails into her hand, almost hard enough to draw blood. "Not interested." As if making up for Kaine's rudeness, Emil moves up to the front. I'm not really good with night festivals since I get sleepy immediately. NieR, Weiss, just enjoy yourselves, okay?" Although the expression on his skull did not change, the waver in Emil's feelings could be heard from his rushed and slightly high-pitched tone. However, NieR did not notice. His response was disappointingly meek. He simply nodded and said, "I see." "It seems fun." That's the sixth time. Can festivals really brighten and provide a release for people's hearts to that extent? To Kaine, who's never known the luxury of experience, it was a bright and unknown world. Along with the people's cheers, a savory aroma floated outside the village. "It's meat." Kaine's stomach rumbled. So, we have Emil constantly saying it seems like fun. Apparently, He's been saying this over and over again, and Kaine starts counting how many times he says it, which is really depressing because you know that both of them are being graded by this shit. Moving on. They're also super hungry. They're not being given any of this food that is inside the village. So you then have to assume that that has also been happening for the past 5 years and now. Great. Moving on from there. NieR actually opens up the doors to the village. He shows up and he tries to give them food. Emil is already asleep, and NieR feels really bad that he didn't do it earlier so he could have gotten Emil the food. Kaine is completely overwhelmed at the thought that even with everything that's going on, NieR didn't forget to come back and check on them. The quote. Thank you. Though the words are simple, Kaine cannot bring herself to say them. Kaine chewed thoroughly, as if putting the words she had to say, the words she wanted to say, into this simple mechanical action. Seeing Kaine's antics, NieR smiled. I was right. You were hungry. No, that's not it. Kaine's muffled words were drowned out. He's going back to the festival with the village girl. Well then, I'll see you tomorrow. Good night. NieR wavered. Kaine merely watched him go in silence. The gate was closed again. The bull's delicacies seemed to have lost their color.
I love that Kaine has the whole tsundere vibe going on, even though it's kind of subtle how she goes with it. I love that whole thing about her personality.
I have no idea what tsundere is.
You.
Please don't explain it because I don't need to learn new terms today.
I'll explain it, but as a dumbed down thing, it's just where a girl kind of likes a guy and the guy is trying to kind of get something going, but she constantly shoves him away, but it's like her way of showing affection, kind of. So in this regard, she's refusing to thank him, even though she wants to thank him. It's how she shows affection.
Mugetsu, I hate anime. I hate anime, so I'll try not to learn more terms I already do.
So you could look at that like it's anime, but at the same time, you could not, because I know people who are like that. Believe it or not, it's real. Believe it or not.
I know, but still. Now I know another term, so I'm going to have to spend extra time to make sure I forget
it. At least it's the only term I'll teach you, because it's what Kaine
is. You know what? I won't cut it. I won't cut it because it was information. Someone out there will appreciate it. Someone will. All right. So it just feels like such a knife into your gut whenever you hear that Kaine, completely being hungry, loses her desire to eat once she realizes that NieR leaves. All right. Bridging statement. A shade shows up and talks to her about how it sucks to be discriminated against and said they sympathize, they being the shades. Kaine just starts beating on this shade once the shade starts implying that Kaine is more shade than human, and the shade just starts telling Kaine, please, okay, I get what I said might have offended you, but I am really hoping that you don't keep fucking trying to kill me. Quote, hey, please stop it. Are you happy? If you kill shades, your grandma will be overjoyed. NieR will be happy. That's good, isn't it? Then what? Even if you kill a shade, the discrimination you suffer won't lessen. You still won't be able to join their festivals. That's how the world is. I know. I understand. Because I am. From there, Kaine just kills him before he can finally finish it. She is completely shaken up by being able to hear this shade talk. She's always been able to hear shade talks, and she just did not want to hear this right now. From here, someone named Tyrion is speaking. I will get into Tyrion later, but he talks to Kaine and says, you are wavering, aren't you? Even within the last lights of his life, the shade still tries to talk. You are beginning to understand, aren't you? Us shades are the true. The shade's voice was thin, covered by its shallow breaths. However, Kaine still heard it. Something she didn't want it to. Truth was hammered into her. That's a lie. Even as she groaned, Kaine knew that the shade's words were not lies. She understood in some deep part of her heart. Fireworks were exploding in the sky. It looked like this was the part of the program that Popola arranged. The fireworks left behind bright trails, and the color returned to Kaine's heart. Behind her closed eyes, the image of her grandma's horrible corpse after being devoured by shades revived. In her peripheral vision, she saw Emil's sleeping form. and within her heart, she felt Nier's desire. So, after feeling these emotions even more, she just starts beating on the shade even more because that's the only way she can really express herself. And the shade that she's beating into just becomes more and more of a pulp. She's gripping her sword so hard that she's bloodying her hands. Emil finally wakes up to this and he's like, "Whoa, Kaine, stop, 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 stop." And he helps her bandage her hands. And Emil wants to ask her what she was doing, but Kaine just decides not to tell her. Emil finishes bandaging her hands, sees the fireworks, and he's happy that even if he's outside, at least he can still enjoy the fireworks. Keeping the quote. Kaine kept her silence and stared at the solid gates, inside and outside the village. She realized that those borders mean so little to her now. Whether she realized it or not, she crossed a huge border tonight. The voices of the villagers faded into the distance. Nier was far off. Even Emil felt that much farther from her. Ignorance is bliss. Kaine tightened her lips. That's why she'll never tell this truth to anyone, no matter what. Kaine closed her heart's door that accepted the secret, bolted the lock, and turned towards Emil. She asked, "Is it not dawn yet?" Mugetsu. Short story. How you feeling?
Yeah, this was a really good story. I like that it's like a nice moment of calm. I like that there's the whole fireworks thing. Of course, I really enjoyed the whole scene with Kaine not able to say thank you because she's scarfing down food. It's a nice little character connection moment. I like these kinds of things. I wouldn't say it's like filler, but it's almost like it in a really good way. I really love this story.
I like this story because it reframes something so pointless, such as them not showing up with you inside the village, and then it just makes it depressing. Where every single time you play this game and you realize the story now, if you walk into Seafront or if you walk into the village or if you walk into the area and they're not with you, you're just like, oh, this is what they're doing right now. They're just really
Mhm.
wishing they were with me right now. And to make something just so minute immediately depressing is just so impressive to me. And this is where we coined the phrase again. Thank you, Yoko. We didn't realize we needed this kind of depression in our lives. I wouldn't call it filler, but damn, is it good regardless. All right.
Absolutely.
Are you good? Anything that you want to talk about this story?
No, no, no. I'm good.
Moving on. All right. After this, the next morning, after you wake up, Popola tells Nier, "Hey, the Shadow Lord might have something to do with the Lost Shrine where you found Weiss. You should probably go over there, see what you're missing." Before I did that, there was a quest that I did. Thieves in training. Shopkeepers in the village keep getting robbed, and they try to figure out who's doing it. You then find out that apparently it's two kids that are robbing things, and you find out that the two kids have a drunken, neglectful dad that basically told them, "Hey, I may be your dad. Fuck you, kids. You figure it out." So the kids were stealing to survive. What ends up happening is that the villagers band together and they get the kids away from the dad and they try to figure out who can take them. Get paid, that's it. It sounds like it's interesting. It's not. It really isn't. After that, you go into the Lost Shrine and you fight the other boss fight that you didn't kill last time. So when you found Grimoire Weiss, there were two bosses. You killed one of them there, and then you left the other one behind. Now that you come back, there is one that is left, and you fight the one that is left. He mortally wounds Kaine, and she turns into a shade. Of course, Kaine, she is part shade. I don't know if I've mentioned that. We don't exactly know the nature of it. We just know that she is part shade, part human. Moving on. After you fight her, you and Emil, both you guys fight her, and she gets back into her human form. And Emil just has a hard emotional scene where he just tells Kaine, "I don't fucking care how many times we have to fight you to get back. I will do it every single time to make sure that you come back because I need you more than you can imagine." And Kaine is just so humbled by this, and she's like, "Okay, you know what? I need to be sure I don't do this to Emil ever again." After this, a key is left behind, and you take it back to Popola. Popola sees it and she's like, "Huh, okay. This is one key of five. You might need to get all five to get into the Shadow Lord's castle." Now, the next short story We called a short story was going to get put into the game, and the next short story is the one that's getting put into the game, called The Mermaid Princess or The Little Mermaid. The reason I bring it up is because the 5 keys that you need to get into the Shadow Lord's castle, none of them are in Seafront. So there is nothing in A Run that ever requires you to go to Seafront unless you need to go to the merchants there or side quests or any of that. So, The Mermaid Princess. This one feels like a big budget thing that would have gone into the game but got cut. So that is why when I saw that this story was being re-included into the game, I can't say I was too shocked at their choice. It makes me a little bit sad because at the end of the day, I don't think it adds too much besides it just being a cool story. So, The Little Mermaid is the Postman side story. Not who I expected to see on this list, but hey, even he got one. What ends up happening is that the postman from Seafront is frequenting back and forth between different places to deliver post. Now, he sees that there is a broken down ship nearby. He is about to leave it because it looks busted, it looks broken, and it looks haunted. And he's just like, I'm not going to worry about that. He goes past it until he hears a child cough from inside the boat. And he's like, ooh, okay, I'm going to try and save this kid. He goes in and he finds a little girl in a sickly state, and she's wearing rags for clothes. During this time, NieR is at Seafront and he's trying to investigate what people are talking about, which is apparently there's a shade invasion, but he's not found proof of it. Whenever he keeps asking people what's going on here, apparently what happens is that they're being taken by a mermaid. After this and his investigation, the postman keeps going back to visit the little girl. He gives her food, he keeps visiting her, and eventually, one of the days that he gives her food, she bites his finger, drawing blood, and the little girl is just staring at the blood. He is completely weirded out a little bit by it, but the little girl is still a little girl, so he tries to give her some leeway. He also learns that she's afraid of light. NieR still investigating what is going on in Seafront. Apparently, the key common thread that he keeps hearing from people is that the Shade invasion was happening. The Shade invasion began with the coincidence of the ship's arrival. So when NieR's trying to figure out more details about this, Kaine shows up inside Seafront. Now, Kaine does not walk into any of the villages. You never see her in one unless if it's the Airy, but she's from there, so understandable. She shows up in Seafront and tells NieR, we need to get to that ship already. And NieR, once he realizes that Kaine went into the town to actually tell him that, that's either really good news or really bad news. And because he realizes that they're talking about the ship, it's probably bad news. Back into the postman. The postman is on the ship and he's with the girl. The girl is a little bit scared, but the postman just starts telling her, like, oh no, you don't need to be scared. You need to sing. Singing makes you happy. And then we lead to a quote. The postman stood up abruptly and began singing while stamping his feet. He was off tone, but the simplistic nature of the song seeped through. The girl stiffened her body. My bad, my bad. This is called a song. You make sounds from the bottom of your belly so you feel better. Songs are wisdom that carry us through the hardships of life. That's why I like singing. I'm pretty bad, but... The postman's song continued. Eventually, the girl tried to mimic him and sing. Her song doesn't quite sound like one. It doesn't even sound like a voice. It was a horrible sound like the squishing of paper bags. However, the postman was overjoyed and clapped his hands. You're good! You're good! The girl saw the happiness that overtook the postman and continued singing her terrible song, embarrassed. The girl's song resonated throughout the broken ship. A beam of light shone into the ship. The girl stopped singing. It's fine. That's not lightning. It's just the beacon from the lighthouse. An acquaintance of mine lived there before. She's already dead. I'd often pass by her house when I was delivering letters. To tell you the truth, it was an exhausting job. But now it just feels nostalgic. The girl did not comprehend the postman's words. He merely patted her head. I always loved loneliness. I'm satisfied with just delivering these letters every day, written by people who felt deeply about the recipient. But recently I was thinking that I'd like to become a person who felt deeply enough about someone to write a letter for them. Won't you come to my place? I'd like to have a daughter, actually. The postman pulled her hand, and the girl shook herself free of his grasp. She shook her head and pointed at the cabin door. The girl began singing in her croaking voice again. You like being here, huh? It's a pity, but I guess I can't. The postman looked at the floor she was pointing at. Something was off. He couldn't see well within the darkness, but some sort of liquid was flowing. He touched it lightly. It felt slippery. The beacon from the lighthouse shone into the room, and he saw his blood-stained hand underneath the hand. The postman looked at the girl. Only the broken song of joy resonated through the room. The team arrive, and Kaine warns them that there is a shade that is within this ship, but she doesn't really want to clarify that it's just a shade. She just knows something is off before they walk in. How does she know that? Because she is part shade. Back into the quote. A dark room, a bloody floor. That person isn't here anymore, so it's okay. The girl shook in the corner of her room. A huge black claw grew out beyond her wrist. Why did it come to this? Did that person leave because of this blackened body? I want to talk normally to him. I don't want to be hated by him. I don't want to be feared by him. Thinking of the postman, she tried to stop herself from transforming into a shade. I have to use more power. If that person saw me like this, I want the power to keep my human form, the power to bathe in sunlight, the power to produce beautiful sounds. Pale streaks of water flowed into her eyes. With her strong will, she managed to revert her black arm to a human's. If I eat more humans, her lips shook. If I do that, I can become human. She said in a voice that cannot be heard by humans, a voice like scraping metals, the voice of a shade. The team enters the ship, and even the shade that's within Kaine feels uncomfortable with the situation, saying that whatever presence is here is not a good one. They see, back to the quote, black hair, pale skin, dirty clothing, red eyes. Kaine understood everything immediately, the truth behind this coldness. This one here is pretty dangerous. Even the shade within Kaine spoke in a fearful tone. That's right. The girl was a shade, but not a normal one. She was significantly more concentrated. She existed with a concentration a few hundred times beyond a normal shade. A single shade has the size of several humans put together, but that's its extent. To attain a greater size, fusion of numerous shades is required. By fusing, shades grow both in power and in size. The shade that attacked Nier's village and the fucker that killed her grandma belong to that category. A fused shade contains the melded consciousness of many shades, and the bigger they get, the more powerful they are. Kaine gained this piece of information from her battle experiences. But this girl in front of her is different. She was a dozen times stronger than that fucker. Kaine could tell from the coldness within her that let out an agonizing scream. Despite all that, she's so small. Kaine knew what her size meant. The girl was keeping her expanding body in check by applying the same amount of force in the opposite direction. In other words, the strength she felt right now is but a tiny fraction of the girl's power. The vibration she felt was a result of the girl's power that threatens to overflow them even now. All she felt were the shade's energies that seeped through. She shuddered at the thought of a complete release of those energies. The shade within her spoke up in a shaking voice. Even this pressure we feel now, it's as simple as breathing for this one. Shit's about to get real, huh? They're all staring at each other with the silence until the mailman shows up. Apparently he had left, and he comes back into the room to just see the little girl staring at the team. Kaine mouths to Nier and Emil that she's a shade, and which the girl responds by attacking them. Her thoughts flood Kaine. Of course, Kaine, being part shade, can hear what the little girl is thinking. Why am I a shade? Please, someone tell me. Why am I not human? Why are you taking that person away from me? Don't let your guard down. The shade's voice lacked in its usual playful tone. The shade being in Kaine. The girl's shade begins to expand around the ship until it engulfs it and turns into a gigantic shade snake. The snake keeps expanding, and eventually the girl shows up back again within the shade, and she's holding the postman. The snake starts roaring, and eventually the roaring turns into the song that the postman sang. Quote, the expanding girl's consciousness was in turmoil with anger. Fear of not knowing what was to become of her, and her hatred towards the humans that tried to take the postman away from her, flowed from her heart. No matter how much I eat humans, I wasn't satisfied. Nobody even helped me. Only this person was nice to me. He taught me what gentleness was. I will become human. I'll speak the same words as this person. I'll live with him. Just a bit more. She covered the postman with both of her hands, taking great care not to injure him. Just a bit more, and she'd gain the power to become human. The postman wakes up and is in fear of the girl, while she continues to smile at him and fights off the team. Kaine attempts to attack the postman as to put the girl's focus away from self-defense, but then slices the girl's head. The Shade starts attacking ferociously and takes out Kaine and Emil. Quote, the Shade took one look at Nier and grabbed him with its black hand. Nah, Nier is... Emil looked at the sky while shaking. Kaine was barely standing among the puddle of her own blood, just when the Shade was about to put Nier in its mouth. Stop! It was the postman who regained consciousness. He ran towards the Shade with unsteady steps. The postman took a feeble piece of splinter as his weapon and faced against the Shade with shaky knees. You monster! You said to live together. Disappear, you man-eater! But you said to sing songs. Let go of that person! I'm trying to become human to live with you. I hate you! The girl stopped. She looked at her body again. Black smoke emerged from where her appendages cut off. She could probably recover from the damage she suffered. However, that proves that she's a Shade. What is this ugly body? Didn't I want to become human? With a body like this, I... She looked at the postman. His eyes were shaking with anger and fear. Die! His words pierced her. That sound of her broken wings falling into the ocean was heard. She knew that she could no longer maintain this body. As the girl was distraught from the postman's words, Kaine wills herself back up and decapitates the girl. They're heavily damaged after the fight, and the postman decides to pay to put them up in the Seafront Inn as a thank you. Kaine finds a letter on her. Quote, it dropped from the broken Shade's body and looked like a letter. Something was written in ugly letters resembling worms more than anything. She thought that it was for the postman, but he told her to take care of whatever the monster left behind. I didn't know she was such a monster. Black letters appear on the postman's foot. Kaine opens the letter. The Shade within her seems very interested. What is this? A letter. Something the Shade wrote for the postman. What ugly handwriting. It was probably trying to copy the pattern as best as it could. What's written on there? Kaine did not answer and simply tore the letter into pieces. Bright sunlight filtered in through the window. The ocean seen from within seemed so peaceful, and the battle at the ship felt like an incident long past. Broken pieces of the letter fell from Kaine's hand. On one of the corners, the words "thank you" were written over and over and again, in ugly lettering. Mugetsu, Little Mermaid. How do you feel about that one?
That was definitely a trip, and honestly, I can't wait to see that in game form because that honestly sounded so good to where I would have been mad if that was cut out. Like, I'm glad that I just heard this now instead of back in the day because I would have been mad because this was such a great piece of storytelling. I like all the expansion with Kaine and her Shade. I like how it expands on her character. This definitely felt like a Kaine short story rather than just a short story for the game, if that makes sense. I like that it's more focused on her.
You're not wrong. It's definitely the Postman story, though, just because it's one of those things that, yes, the Postman already got development through the short story, but then to just something about that moment when he talks about him liking loneliness, but also wishing to be someone that could receive letters. The way he frames it in how he understands how people care about each other, that shit hurts.
Absolutely.
I mean, and he looks at this little girl, he just wants a connection, and he finds finally someone that he can help, that can be that person to him. And it then hurts when you realize that he then comes to the realization that he can't love this girl because there is not a girl, it's a Shade. And then the Shade
Right.
realizing, no, please, I finally had something. You finally had something, and you're just throwing it away. Oh, that's some good shit writing. This is what I was talking about when you said that Juneshima. Did I say that name right?
Yeah, Juneshima.
Whenever we mentioned that her writing style was just so good, the fact that her writing style stayed this good even through a fan translation into English, that is some incredible writing, because I made sure to
Absolutely.
write as many quotes as I could, because the tone setting in this is just so filled with just this dread and the sadness that the postman feels from knowing that he's going to have to go back to being the
Right.
sad person that he is. I mean, the Shade was trying to learn to write English so it could communicate with the postman. Oh,
Right.
damn, I can't wait to see this in game. I can't wait. It's a good story.
Me neither. I can't wait.
Moving on. So, the reason I threw that in there is because it's a bit of an evergreen story. Literally anywhere between A run or B run, you can put that story up to a certain point. Anytime that you need to go look for the keys, this story could have fit, so I decided to toss it in here since Seafront is never mentioned at all, at
Right.
least from A or B run. Moving on. One of the keys for the Shadow Lord's castle might be in the Forest of Myth. You go over there, and the tree that is the main anchor to the Forest of Myth, apparently there's something going wrong with it. You go and talk to it, and the divine tree just starts slowly losing its mind. Apparently, the divine tree can communicate people in the same way that the death stream was talking to people, where it was a gigantic script on screen. The divine tree is talking about how it was tasked with holding the memories of humanity when the salt took people. Apparently, the tree was interconnected to the entire world and held numerous memories of the true humans that were dying for the Black Scrawl. There's one story about a boy who was bedridden until his parents abandoned him, and a lonely girl he cherishes visits. He's apparently too bitter of the day that she will leave him, and that eventually, because he is so afraid of that day, he ends up forcing it because he is so negative that the little girl no longer wants to be around him. He dies alone. A warrior who fights the Red Eyes, and her enemies continue to multiply as the fallen turn into salt. At some point, a dragon appears to wipe out everyone. So, of course, Dragon Guard reference. This is the most blatant one. The Divine Tree mentions only of a red dragon that fell from the sky. Ah, that's a lost memory. That's a shame. That was a good one. So, apparently, the Divine Tree begins to talk about Angelus falling from the sky, but then doesn't follow through with it. What you then find out is that the divine tree is slowly losing its memories, and along with it, its purpose for existence. What Nier ends up realizing is that there is a shade that is apparently eating the memories. And what ends up happening is that Nier starts fighting the shade, and the shade dies and gives the tree back its memories. The tree, once it's provided its memories back from the shade, the tree goes, "Oh my god, you're Nier. You're important to Project Gestalt." But before that, Nier is expelled. The memory, apparently, from the entire tree is completely gone. The tree no longer has any memories. But now you have a key. Both Nier and Weiss, as they're walking away, are thinking, wait, that shade that we fought was talking. And they're both like, you know what? Don't think about it. Let's not think about it. Things are about to get really complicated if we start thinking like that. Next up, I did a quest. A bridge in peril. A soldier's family is killed by a large shade. Kill the shade, and then find out that apparently his daughter died after the fact because of wounds. Get paid. That's it. It just felt like a sprinkling of sadness. It's nothing too special. After this, you go back to Devil and Popola after your trip from the Forest of Myth, and Devil and Popola tell you that the Eyrie apparently is open. The weird town where there is those houses bolted onto the wall, they are, of course, like I said earlier in the first part, they are basically always telling you as soon as you get in there, get the hell out. We don't want you here. We don't want your kind here. Any of that. And you go because the Eyrie has sent a letter to your village saying, hey, we opened up, we're no longer assholes, please come in, trade with us, let's do that. And Devil and Pope are both like, this is weird, you should probably go check on them to make sure that nothing is off there. You go and you talk to the mayor in the Eyrie, and the mayor just like tells you, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, there's not a letter I sent or anything. Weiss tells you, hey, go investigate some people. You go and you investigate one dude, and he starts going insane as soon as you ask him about the letter. And what he does is that he turns into a shade. What ends up happening is that there are some shades that apparently can look human, and you start killing just a whole bunch of these people. There is a specific scene where Kaine is fighting a girl, and the girl's protecting her younger brother, and Kaine is trying to kill this kid, and she looks at Nier and is like, this kid is a shade and so is his sister, we need to get rid of them. But it looks so off because it really does look like Kaine's trying to kill straight up humans. So that's going on. You're basically fighting between some shades and some humans that look like shades. It's all kinds of messed up. You have the villagers completely just yelling at you the entire time, like just, oh my god, you are ruining stuff. Get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. After that, a gigantic shade that apparently has absorbed a whole bunch of the villagers pops up and starts fighting you. And you start fighting it, but Emil is holding reservations because he knows that that gigantic shade is all of the villagers combined together. And he does not feel right with the fact that if he fights this thing and he wins, he's probably killed countless amounts of people. Eventually, Emil has to relapse and he decides to try to help and fight, since if he doesn't help, Nier will probably die, and so will Kaine. So eventually, he helps Nier just focus his power on this shade, but he loses control and he basically blows up the entire area. So not only did he not want to destroy the villagers that were sucked into that gigantic shade, he also went a little bit overboard and not only killed that shade, but killed everyone in the area. Good job, Emil. Thank you, Yoko.
Good job.
Now, Nier tells Emil, because Emil is completely distraught at the idea that he killed this many people. And Nier just, at the most, can just tell him, hey, look, if you hadn't done what you did, both me and Kaine would be dead. And Emil he just has to accept it. There's nothing he can do besides accept it. Mugetsu, the entire segment in the area, how do you feel about that? Anything?
Nothing really. I mean, I do like where the writing is going at this point, but I don't really have any major thoughts on it.
Okay, fair enough. So, continuing from here, after you are done with the Airy, you go back to the Two Brothers Refinery, and you go there and you get a little flashback of the brothers being inside the military base. And you see that the older brother runs into a gigantic robot named P-33. You don't know that yet, but might as well get it out of the way so we can talk about it. The older brother sees P-33 and he pushes his younger brother Gideon out of the way to try to save him. But P-33 gets spooked and then runs away as well, and it drops a whole bunch of metal on the older brother. Gideon sees his older brother get crushed by all this metal, and what he does is that he tries to pull his brother out, but what ends up happening is that the younger brother, apparently, while trying to save his older brother, pulls off his arm in the process.
Woo!
So, after this, he is completely traumatized. He blames the robot and the little shade that was near that robot, and he goes fucking insane. So once we get to the Two Brothers Refinery, you get there and it becomes apparent that the younger brother obviously has grown up, but he has a robotic hand. I didn't add it to the document, but Mugetsu, do you know why that is?
No.
So the younger brother was guilt ridden so much about his older brother and that he was so distraught by it that he started scratching the arm that his brother lost until eventually he literally started tearing his own arm apart and had to replace it with a robot arm.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So, just a funny thing, when it came to the budget for this game, Square Enix, of course, had told them to change it to Father Nier instead of Brother Nier because they thought it would do better in the West, outside of Japan. And they specifically fought really hard to get NieR Replicant still made even throughout that. So because of that, they did have to cut some of the budget and some of the scope to make up for that. The reason I mentioned that is because Yuri Lowenthal, of course, if anyone knows Yuri Lowenthal, he was Spider-Man in PS4 Spider-Man, and he is also Yusuke in Persona 4 Golden. The reason I mentioned this,
He's also a lot of NPCs and Naughty Dog games. I noticed, like in The Last of Us, he's
Taurus!
one of those generic voices for. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Taurus.
Oh my god, factions, huh? Oh, I can't wait until they ruin that too. So, Yuri Lowenthal, the reason I mention it is that he plays both of the brothers when they get older. So, once they get to the older age, he plays the exact same character. I have no idea if he plays Gideon when he's younger, but I'm going to assume yeah, because the voice sounds.
I do believe he does.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because the voice for the younger brother is like, Jacob, I'm hungry. And like, it sounds like he's intentionally high pitching it. So I'm going to assume it's him. You told me it is. We're going to take it as fact. You go to the younger brother, and he tells you, hey, yeah, you're here. I can strengthen up your weapon, but I need you to get some resources from the robots in there. And the younger brother is like a complete hard on about killing these robots. He's just like, yeah, while you're in there, kill every single last one of them. I don't fucking care how you have to do it.
Drooling at the mouth while he's saying it.
Oh, absolutely. And both NieR and Weiss are just like, okay, he's a little fucky. We're not gonna question it. You go in there, you kill the robots that you need to, you get the supplies you need, you come back, and he's just like, oh, by the way, thank you for killing all those. Go kill more if you'd like while I get your weapon ready. And you're like, oh, all right, okay, I need to go do something else. So from there, you didn't find a key. You go back to the village, and you find mail from the king of Facade. He tells you that he's getting married and that all of you are invited. So you go over to Facade, and the king is telling you, hey, look at me, I'm getting married, and guess who I'm getting married to? I'm getting married to Fyra. And so you talk to both of them, you catch up a little bit, you're told to stay, and you're made guests. After that, there is a small scene where NieR is talking to Kaine, and Kaine just feels like really uncomfortable being there. She just doesn't like festivities. She doesn't like attention to herself. So she's not comfortable there. There is another scene that is the few regional differences between Replicant and Gestalt. Emil talks to NieR about his wedding. NieR just kind of goes, oh, well, you know what? It was a long time ago. I don't remember too much. I don't think it's important. And then NieR walks away, and Emil goes, well, it's important to me. But apparently, in the Japanese replicant version, Emil implies that he is super, super gay for NieR. Incredibly gay. Now, the reason I mention this is because I'm leading into another quote from Yoko Taro. I titled this Emil, comma, very gay. Yoko describes this. They asked him, what was your decision with making Emil gay? Yoko Taro says, how you would define unusual is the question. If we look around, we can definitely see homosexuals, few in numbers they may be. I'm not trying to say don't discriminate or anything like that. Just people like that exist. It's simply how the world works. They're labeled with normal and unusual and compared quite often, but the difference between people with certain sexual preferences lies purely in number. Some are quite abundant, some are quite not, but we're in the same world. I never intended for them to appear special. Based fucking Yoko Taro. Fucking based.
Absolutely based. I love his explanation.
It's
I love
so fucking good. He's just like, what? Why are you making a note that he's gay? He just is. He's a person. What the fuck do you want to do? Based. Fucking based.
A great person, might I add. Best boy.
Emil is best boy.
Best boy is gay, makes him even more best.
Emil is the bestest boy, and I swear that if anyone hates Emil, you have no heart. Take the game, break it over your knee. We don't need you here, okay?
If anyone hates Emil, they automatically hate all the gays. Emil is, as far as I'm concerned, Emil is leading
There we
the
go.
gays.
Emil is gay pride. You hate Emil, you hate the gays. Congrats.
Exactly.
You're now a homophobe.
Now they need to make a DLC where he has a rainbow themed head. That's how
For
it
the
needs to
love
go.
of God, also make all the bullets in this game have the same rainbow.
Exactly. Please do.
So, Mugetsu, pausing here, all of that and all the facade stuff. Anything or no? Oh wait,
No.
sorry, not even facade. Even the brothers.
The brothers thing was definitely something that the whole arm thing. That's that's some of the writing that I love, but man, it's yikes, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of fucked to think that you scratched your arm hard enough that you were like, ah man, I need a robotic arm now.
I don't even want to imagine what it looked like. Like, there must have been.
You have to imagine that it looked incredibly scabby, just really messed up until finally
Yeah,
one
like
day.
really, really dark shades of red and everything all
Ugh,
over.
I'm thinking rotting
Oh,
flesh more than anything
goodness.
else.
And probably smelled awful too. Yeah.
Okay. Now, continuing on, the spot that we left off with was confirming that Japanese Emil, completely gay, American Emil, completely neuter. God damn it.
Yeah, inferior.
Yeah.
I'm
Straight
sorry.
Emil is worse than gay Emil. Gay Emil, even better.
Exactly.
Okay. Continuing on, that was where we left off. We skipped to the day of the wedding. The king and Fyra are about to get married, but then wolves attack the wedding. They kill Fyra whenever they're trying to attack the king, and Fyra sacrifices herself to make sure that they kill her instead of the king. And the king just wants straight up revenge. Now, remember how I mentioned 9/11? Apparently, this is one of the scenes that Yoko talked about specifically by being influenced with 9/11 when he spoke about this scene. Not only that, this is the scene he used as an example to explain how he writes his stories. He writes them backwards. So, what he does is that he tells himself, okay, what is the tragedy at the end of this story? A girl dies. And then he starts asking himself, okay, but why is that sad? She is going to die on her wedding day. Okay, why is it sad that she's going to die on her wedding day? That's already pretty sad, but what is it else? So he just keeps asking these questions, and that's how he apparently writes his stories. He talked about how he tried to find script books, and eventually he just kept reading them and going, wow, I don't understand anything that's going on. I'm just going to write these in a different way. Once again, based Yoko Taro.
That is definitely a really good style of writing. I mean, what I've done, I normally write myself these little short stories in my spare time, and I wouldn't say I do that one to one, but I definitely do things where I kind of look at like the end result and then I try to see how I want to branch it from there. But I like how he views it specifically as, okay, this tragedy happens. Why is it sad? Okay, why is that sad? So on and so forth. I like that he views it from a sadness standpoint rather than just, okay, why is this happening in general? I like that it's just, why is it sad?
Fyra dead. The king just immediately wants to go to war. He wants to take the fight to the wolves immediately. However, the soldiers are telling him, look, there's a way that we need to do this. And the king goes, I do not care how we need to do this. Fuck the rules. They killed Fyra and we need to get him. Apparently, the soldiers, per the rule of declaring war, they need to go to every single individual's house and ask them if they can go to war. So what they were doing is that they were delaying the king from leaving so then they could be able to get everyone to sign off on it. And every single person unanimously signs off on it. And honestly, I gotta admit, it's actually a pretty solid emotional beat because you have the soldiers knowing, yeah, we're going to fucking avenge Fyra. We just need to make sure it was done by the books. I'm going to go ahead and finish all of this up before we get opinions on this. Once you do all of this and you go into the wolves' den, you fight all these wolves, and it's very weird because when the king kills the shade wolf that had killed Fyra, they play a bit of a sad beat to it. They play Emil's song, and you just feel like, wait a minute, why is this supposed to be sad? And then you get the key. Continuing from here, you go back to, I finally wrote it down, Junk Heap. Yeah, Junk Heap is the name. I'm still call it Two Brothers Refinery though. You go back to the Two Brothers Refinery and they tell you that your weapon is ready. But before you leave, Gideon looks at you and is like, I need you though to kill this robot. I know that you take jobs, so please do this for me. Of course, because you're Nier, you can't say no. You literally can't. You go down and you find P33 and you fight him, and at some point he starts smashing the ceiling to drop rocks at you. The words that he says while he's fighting you is, he must protect. I must keep my mission. I wish to see the world. And you keep fighting him. You kill him, the shade falls off of him, and you kill that one too. The brother shows up and he just has a complete mental breakdown about this robot. He starts beating the shit out of it. And he's just like, you ruined my life. You took my brother from me. You are horrible. And at some point, Nier goes, you know, beating that thing isn't going to bring your brother back. And he goes, I know, but it makes me feel good. And then eventually he talks about blowing up the jump keep and making weapons that just will do nothing but wreak havoc. Completely fucking lost it. We'll get to the return to the jump keep. Thoughts, if any?
Yeah, I like that this, and I'm going to make another comparison here. I like this little similarity it has to when 9S loses his marbles in Automata. How he completely throws away all of his sense of reasoning when he gets surrounded by all those 2Bs. He's like, I'm glad you're here. I'm going to destroy every last one of you. And it's clearly not because there's a reasoning. He is just had it, and he's just fed up, and he just wants to let go. That's the whole vibe you get all the way through the ending of that game. As soon as you started talking about the mental breakdown, I honestly pictured 9S in the brother's shoes because that's what it reminded me of, and how he's beating that 2B corpse at the end of the scene as well. It's very similar. I love it.
Man.
Like how 9S is even at the point where he says, where A2 mentions uploading to the Ark, and he says, why should I care? It's just like how the brother says that he's just going to blow up the junk heap and just wreak havoc because he doesn't care anymore. I love when characters completely lose their sense of morality and they just let loose.
So there is one thing, yeah, there actually is a reason why 9S decided to kill all those 2B bots. Do you remember why?
Maybe it's not in my brain right now.
Okay, that is fine. I will delve into it. Do you remember the you know you want to blank 2B?
Right.
It's probably not fuck 2B, it's most likely kill 2B. There is a side quest in Nier Automata where you are doing Jackass's research, and apparently what she tells you is that apparently the pleasure receptors in the androids is triggered by killing. So the thing is that the androids could actually get the emotions for sex and for killing mixed up. So he is so overwhelmed with lust of both kinds that he starts killing 2B. So it just gets even more fucked up.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I could see that, but I also just saw it as because he kind of laughs before he says that he's gonna kill them, and he's just like, okay, at 2B's already dead. I've lost my shit. This entire weird place is fucking with me, and so he just thinks of it as a joke, and then he's like, you know what? It's a joke. I'm just gonna kill everyone. That's how I saw it, but I guess I could kind of see what
you're not wrong. It's all of those. I'm not saying it's one or the other. I'm saying that, well, or maybe I did, and if I did, I misspoke. But that is the way I read it, that he is just so overwhelmingly just once he's around all these 2Bs, there's nothing he can do. Because I mean,
yeah, basically he just flips the switch on his whole lust meter with the killing, and he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna kill everyone. I want to do it.
Pretty much. Okay, now continuing on with the story. Now that you're finally done with the wolves, you finally find the last key. You go back to Devil and Popola, and they're like, "Oh man, you're finally gonna do it. You're gonna go to the Lost Shrine." And Nier, Kaine, Emil, and Weiss all go. What you start noticing is that the shades this entire time are becoming a little bit human like their shapes are becoming a bit more bipedal than anything else instead of these kind of monkey shapes. They even start wearing armor, so they're showing signs of intelligence. You go into the shrine, and there is a bird asking you in a booming voice, and you have to answer the questions. It asks you, why are the humans gone? How can humans extend their lives? What is the destination of souls? So you answer them. Why are the humans gone? A black disease. How can humans extend their lives? Separating body and soul. What is the destination of souls? They are placed in their corresponding shells. Once you do this, you open up a door, and Devil and Poplar are on the other side, and they look like they do not want to be there. They want to be there less than you are. And they are just telling you, hey, I'm pretty sure it's too late to try to convince you to go back to the village, right? And they unwillingly fight you. You are trying to just understand what the hell is going on, and they call Grimoire Weiss a traitor. You beat them, and they disappear. You go into a ballroom of phantoms, and as you're hanging around there, they start turning into shades, and you start fighting them. And more of the shades that you fight, they end up turning a little bit more human with each one that you fight. Eventually, you fight a gigantic boar of a shade, and you keep running away from him because he keeps regenerating. Eventually, the King of Facade and a whole bunch of his soldiers pop up, and they tell you, hey, look, we'll take care of this. You go and get Yona. How do they get there? Who cares? It hits the emotion, and like we said at the beginning, the game is all about the emotion and lore shit if you want it. Logic sometimes goes out the window. Once you get into the room that Devla and Popola ended up in, they tell you that 1300 years ago, Project Gestalt was enacted, and that everyone in this room is not human. So all of you are replicants, and me, Devla and Popola, are androids. They reveal that all of you are replicants, all of you are shells, and that they need NieR to rejoin the Shadow Lord. The twins were the ones who were set to oversee everything, and that they've been manipulating this entire thing to get them to rejoin together. And they even say that we ourselves are just as much slaves as you replicants are. Weiss is like, what the hell is going on? And then at this point, they snap Project Gestalt into his mind. So, ignoring Project Gestalt because we are going to touch that next time. Mugetsu, all that, how are you feeling?
Ooh, man. I don't really have many thoughts. Kind of said it all earlier with the whole 9S thing, but I like to say this is where the plot gets really, really, really juicy. Like this is, I don't want to say it's the gotcha moment, like the big twist, because I don't think that really happens in the game. But this is where a lot of it really mixes in good, I would say.
I would say this is the turn. It wouldn't be the twist, but it's the turn when you start realizing.
Yeah, the turn. That's a good thing. Or like the climax, maybe. Maybe that's a good way to put it. It's like the climax of it.
True. Sure. So this is the moment when finally the characters are going to learn the shit that you guys learned in the first part.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this feels
when it all goes to hell. Yeah.
All right, then Mugetsu, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it. I'm gonna hit.
Hey, it me again. Somehow, the Nier 2010 Spoilercast has become a trilogy. I just put in that much content. By the time you hear this, I'm pretty sure, it's already out, so at least the current plan that I have is to release this one on the 23rd and then record the next one after that. So, should it be too far until the trilogy's done? Cool.